Hey, kia ora, and welcome to Church Online. Again, don't forget, probably only going to be doing these Church Onlines for a few more weeks, and then we're going to stream the sermon and the prayer and so on from the service, and so things will change a bit. So if you're following us online, which is awesome, we'll make sure there's real clear instructions on how to find everything once we change over. But I'm just kind of letting you know, hey, so it's Mother's Day for the Sunday that I'm preaching this sermon on. So if you're a mum, well done. And if you've ever had a mum, well done, right? Most of us have had a mum at some point. Some of us had amazing mums. Some of us had mums that were not so amazing. And so I just really want to say, if you're one of those people that at some point in your life had a mum that was pretty rough, then man, I just want to say I'm really sorry for you. I hope you've been able to find someone to talk to about that and kind of process through that, because it's a pretty tough aspect of your life to learn to work through, right? To continue being healthy with. So if you haven't, we have some really cool people at church that would love to chat with you and pray with you and be with you on that, But I know for most people their mums were pretty awesome. So if you remember, excuse me, I'm still recovering from COVID and coughing away. If you remember, we're in, as a church, we're going through Acts at the moment. And so it's kind of weird. I was like, man, how do you do a sermon out of Acts for Mother's Day? And so I'm kind of cheating a bit, and I've got three cool points about mums. And it really ends up being about awesome ladies, right? And linking these into traits that we see coming out of the book of Acts. For most of them, you'll see where we go as we get going. Hey, so I'm going to start with a story about my mum, because my mum was awesome. This is just a story about her being amazing, basically. So my mum, I grew up at a camp over in Matamata called Totara Springs, and moved there when I was 2, and then left when I was like 18 and left home and went crazy and did all sorts of evil things. But growing up there was pretty cool. It was pretty scary. Some scary stuff happened, but some good stuff happened. And Mum, for a lot of years, was the main cook at the camp, and also the main of doing all the admin, right? Which was pretty massive. It was quite a big camp. And so during the school holidays, we used to have around 250 plus kids come in for 3 5-day camps that were back to back. So one group would be leaving as the other group came in, and it was pretty massive. So Mum would do all the cooking for that, but also all the registrations and everything, and pretty crazy. My sisters and I often have talked about how one of our memories growing up is of going to bed with Mum on the typewriter, because she would have done a full day cooking, and now she's in the office trying to do all the admin stuff and catch up late at night. Pretty crazy. So anyway, crazy story. Once Mum was pregnant with my smaller sister, and it was pretty much 9 months pregnant. Like the baby was due to arrive, but they had the school holidays coming, all these kids coming in. And so Mum still did the cooking, and she was apparently huge, and it made it hard to stir the giant pots because she had belly and crazy. And so she did all the cooking for it, and then at the end of the 3 weeks, because she was so pregnant, she was absolutely exhausted. And she said when she finished, she drove herself to the maternity ward in Matamata, and to kind of check herself in, and they checked her out. They're like, you're not due to have the baby for a couple more days. And she said she just pleaded with them because she was so tired and exhausted from the camp and was worried if she went back to camp she'd have to keep working. And so they were like, okay, fine. And so she ended up staying, I think it was for a day or 2, and then had the baby, and it was all kind of good. Crazy times, right? One of the big things I want to talk about this morning is that society and friends and family, well-meaning people, often put quite extreme expectations and demands on us. And as people, especially as ladies, I think in our culture, we have to be really careful around what voices we listen to. We have to be really careful around who defines us and who sees what we should and shouldn't do. Now, one of the reasons I told that story is because I would put a big box of cash on that. Some of you, when you listened to that story, you felt really guilty. You felt stink that you couldn't be that amazing and be a camp cook and an administrator, and you're like, oh. And one of the things I want to talk about so many times in this sermon is that is not the way of Jesus. The way of Jesus is never guilt and shame and you should. It's just never, that's not who God is. God is all about us learning to listen to his voice. God is all about us learning to have a healthy rhythm of life, living the way He calls us to live within the gifting and the calling and the passions and our personality type. You're going to see that as we go through. That's kind of where I'm going. And as I prayed about this week, I kept feeling like there will be some ladies listen to this message and be real set free this morning, or at least the beginning of being set free from having expectations and obligations and being defined by social media or people around them. So I really encourage you to listen real well today, eh? Hey, so I got 3 little points, and they're kind of, I don't know. If you disagree, feel free to get hold of me, craig@agorachurch.nz. Always happy to chat, catch up for a coffee. But hopefully this will make sense where I'm going. So here's the first one, these will pop up, eh? You don't need to be the Proverbs 31 lady, right? You don't need to be the Proverbs 31 lady. So I want to read a couple of verses out of Proverbs 31. I want to be real careful here, because otherwise I'm going to get myself in huge trouble. So I'm over in Proverbs 31. Where am I going? I'm going to read verses 13 down to 18. And it's talking about this amazing woman. And I totally get what the author's saying, right? He's saying it's good for us to be engaged in life. It's not good for us to have, unless we're going through a bad season in life, that always changes the rules, right? It's not good for us to have a messy house and we're lazy and we come home from work and we're just slobs. That's not healthy, right? And he's trying to say in here, here's some cool characteristics, some cool qualities of a lady. But I think now in our society, too many ladies take this on as this crazy burden, right? So let me read some of this. This is this amazing woman in Proverbs 31. She finds wool and flax and busily spins it. She's like a merchant's ship, bringing her food from afar. I love this next one. She gets up before dawn to prepare breakfast for her household and plan the day's work for her servant girls. Good idea having servant girls. She goes to inspect a field and buys it with her earnings. She plants a vineyard. She's energetic and strong, a hard worker. She makes sure her dealings are profitable. And her lamp burns late into the night. Now, Jose and I joke about these verses a lot. And often it'll end up with me getting punched or in trouble, because I'll say something to Jose like, and I'll be joking, seriously, why aren't you making your own clothes, right? When was the last time you bought a vineyard? What's going on here? Why aren't you working late in the night burning the oil, misquoting Proverbs 31. And often Jose will laugh about it, and often she'll punch me or I'll end up in huge trouble. But I don't know, I've talked to a few ladies this week and asked them, did they grow up with this heavy burden of the Proverbs 31 lady on them? And they were like, yeah, totally. Even one of the younger people in our church, who's only 25, I asked her, have you heard this, or was this something from my older generation? She said, no, people still talk about that, that you should be more like the Proverbs 31 lady. Now, I want to be real careful when I say this. And again, there's good in there, right? We want to be productive and energetic and engage with society and be good parents or good house people and all this kind of stuff. But I think sometimes in society and in the church, we can just put these heavy burdens on people. Why aren't you more like the Proverbs 31 lady? Look at the things that she did. That's what God wants you to do. It's like, whoa. I just really question that, right? I really question that. The key thing I want to keep saying is, it's not for me to be a Proverbs 31 woman or man, you know what I'm saying? The key is for me to be connected with God, right? The key is for me to hear from God. How does He want to define me? What does He call me to do? I love this quote. I got a whole bunch of cool quotes this morning because it's Mother's Day, right? I love this one from Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. I just love that. That's such a cool quote. No one can put expectations on us. No one can define us other than those we allow to do that. Those that we agree with, those that we accept, right? I thought that was pretty powerful. But for this to be true, you've got to work at it, because society and social media and well-meaning friends and family are continually telling us who we should be, continually trying to define you and put expectations and burdens on you. And I think the most important thing is always for me to figure out, who does God want me to be? What is He calling me to be? Who's He calling me to be? How does He define me? I love these verses from Acts chapter 4. So Chris is going to be preaching on this in a Sunday or two. And if you have time, read the whole chapter to get some context. But basically, the apostles someone's been healed, and like amazingly, and they're being questioned by the Jewish leaders, and the Jewish leaders are kind of freaking out. And look at the verse there, Acts 4:13. The members of the council, the Jewish leaders, were amazed when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, for they could see that they were ordinary men with no special training in the scriptures. They also recognized them as men who had been with Jesus. Man, I just love that last bit, right? I love that last bit. Nowhere in here did they say, how come these guys are so amazing? How come they're able to heal this person? How come they're so clever in their public speaking and questioning when we question them? How come they're able to do this? Oh, it's because they make their own clothes and they buy a vineyard. That's not what they say, right? It's because they spend time with Jesus. They realize they spent time with Jesus. The most important thing about us is always our relationship with God, because He is the only one often who will correctly define us, who will correctly tell us who we are and put expectations and desires on us that are healthy and good and well, right? Jesus is always speaking to us. He's always talking to us, and it's up to us to choose which voice we're going to listen to. Am I going to listen to the voices on social media telling me I should be this kind of person? My house should look like this, my job should be this, my children should be this. Am I going to listen to friends and family who are telling me this? Or am I going to learn over time with effort to listen more and more to the voice of Jesus and the way He defines me, the way He describes me, the callings that He puts on my life? Who am I listening to? I love this verse from John 10, and I read this verse all the time, right? Jesus is speaking and He says, my sheep listen to my voice. I know them and they follow me. I give them eternal life and they will never perish. No one can snatch them away from me. My sheep listen to my voice. And it's so important for us to learn to listen to God's voice as He describes and defines and explains us. Explains to us who we are. Now, I want to be real careful, because I can fall into this trap of telling you, well, you should be listening to Jesus' voice more, and put another burden and expectation on you. So I want to be real careful about this and say, I don't think this is a heavy burden to take. And so I just wrote down a couple of simple ways that you could learn to listen to Jesus' voice more than the voices around you. And the simple one is to hang out with Him. It's not rocket science, right? To just spend a little bit of time in the Bible. It could be just a few minutes. You can download YouVersion if you don't have it for free on your phone, your laptop, your tablet, whatever. And there's little devotions on there that can take like 2 minutes, just a thought and some verses. There's bigger ones you can do, but little ones. And just make that commitment, man, every day I'm going to start my day, or I'm going to finish my day, or at lunchtime I'm going to hide somewhere and I'm just going to do one of these devotions so that I learn to listen to the voice of Jesus defining me and describing me. Another simple thing you can do is at Agora, Josephine, my wife and one of the pastors here, she set up a thing called Women Connect, and she's got a whole bunch of ladies in the church being connected with ladies further down the track than them. And there's a bunch of ladies that are older, I'll say that carefully, and more mature, who are now mentoring, some quite formally, some real unofficially, in a way, just catching up to speak grace and love and truth and blessing into the lives of these younger ladies and kind of vice versa. So there might be something you could think about doing. You might be like, man, that's what I need. I need a godly woman, or if you're a guy listening, right, a godly guy who's further down the track than me, speaking grace and truth and love into my life and teaching me to listen to the voice of Jesus. So I don't want to put another burden on you. I have to listen to this sermon now. I've got to do this as well. Yeah, we kind of missed the entire point, right? I love this quote by Nancy Leigh DeMoss. She's a Christian radio host over in Philadelphia in the US. And she says this: the Christian life is not all about the things we do for God. It's about being loved by Him, loving Him in return, and walking in intimate union and communion with Him. I love that. Hey, I think it's not just a Christian thing at all, right? It's a societal thing. When we read that the other way around, we would read the Christian life is about all the things we do for God. It's like, no, it's not. It's about being with him and spending time with him and listening to him. And I love that quote, right? Hey, so first point, you don't need to be a Proverbs 31 lady. So take that burden off if you've been trying to buy a vineyard or whatever, making your own clothes. That's a good thing. I know heaps of ladies in our church are knitting machines. I'm not saying stop knitting. You know what I'm saying, right? Hey, here's the second point. And this one, I got to be real careful on this one or I'm going to get myself into even more trouble. You don't need to be the greatest hospitality person. You don't need to be the greatest hospitality person. I want to take that burden off you if you felt like that. Now let me illustrate this with my grandmother. So I had an amazing grandmother. So she grew up in Leicester over in England, and she lived there with my dad. My dad came out to, and his brother and parents came out to New Zealand when he was 15, and my grandmother was in Leicester during World War II, and Leicester was bombed terribly, and they used to have to go and hide, and it was all pretty crazy stuff. And excuse me, and when they came out to New Zealand, things turned to custard for my grandma and my papa, and they lost a lot of money, and it was just a pretty rough time. They came from a rough time in England during World War II, and then came to New Zealand, and things kind of went very pear-shaped while they were here. But anyway, so my grandmother was a very caring person and a very sharing person, very hospitable. And Dad used to tell me a story that they lived in Auckland, in the middle of in Browns Bay is where they lived, whatever. And Dad said early on when they were here, so it would have been mid-50s, early 50s, when Dad was still a bit younger, there was a guy living just down the road from them, a few houses down, and literally in a little old shack he'd kind of put up on the corner of these two roads. And Grandma, because she cared for people, she would often make a meal for him, and Dad would take the meal down to this guy living in the shack, and he'd be all thankful. And Dad one day went down, and there were two guys in the shack, and he'd invited a friend over because he knew he was getting a meal, and Dad apparently was tacked that how dare this guy, abuse the hospitality of his mother, my grandmother. And he went back to Grandma to kind of complain and told her, and she said, oh, well, next time I'll just have to make twice as much. And I was like, oh, what a legend, right? What a legend. I love these verses at the end of Acts chapter 2, verses 42 to 45. I'm going to read these, and as I read them, I want you to work hard to not feel, excuse me, burdened, because I think that's what can happen. Let me read this, verse 42 of Acts 2. All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, and to the sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, so communion, and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over them all, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders. And all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. They sold their property, possessions, they shared the money, and that carries on, right? One of the things I just want to talk a bit about in this point is we don't want that burden of being the Proverbs 31 lady, but we also don't want this burden of having to be the most hospitable person on the planet. And again, I talked to a couple of ladies this week, and I said, man, do ladies ever feel inferior? Do ladies ever feel insignificant or guilty or shamed because they're not able to be as hospitable or as an amazing cook or share stuff as much as some other ladies in society, but in our church specifically? And the answer was, yeah, totally. I've even heard from some ladies in our church how they just feel real embarrassed that they can't have people around all the time because that's just not them, and it freaks them out. And I'm like, why do we do that? Where does this come from? You read that Acts 2 and you're like, oh my gosh, I should be sharing everything. And again, is that what God's called you to do? Is that how God's wired you? Is that how God's designed you? I don't know. The only way you're going to find out is to learn to listen to the voice of Jesus, because he will describe it, he will define you. Right? As I've said a bunch of times here at church, we have a bunch of ladies that got together at the beginning of this last big COVID pandemic and cooked a ton of meals, like a lot of meals, and we put them in a freezer here at church, and we've been able to hand these meals out to people in need, people who are just really broke at the moment with inflation and stuff, people going through real hard times, people with COVID with their whole families and stuff. Just this week I was able to take a bunch of meals to several people now who their family was down with COVID and they're freaking out how we're going to cook, and the husband and wife are really sick and they got kids, and it's like turn up with a bunch of ready to go meals, and they're just like, oh my gosh, this is just, it's so cool. But again, even saying that, I know that, and the reason I told that about the cooking the meals is I know some of you ladies would have gone, and guys, right? Oh man, I should have, should you? Is that a calling and a gifting that God's put on your heart? Is that a passion you have? If it is, then yeah, you need to get involved. We've got a good team of ladies that would love to have you come and help them. But for a whole bunch of us, that's not what God's calling us to do. He's not calling me to do that. And if I did, I'd be doing it in my strength, not his strength. Because he's like, what? Craig, why are you doing all this cooking and making all these meals? One, they'd be super spicy and no one would be able to eat them, except for maybe Kumlan and a few people like that. Oh my gosh, dang. Oh, I love spice. But it's not what I'm called and gifted to do, right? There's ladies in our church that are just the most incredible cooks and the most hospitable. You go to their house and it's just like, oh, I'm like at an amazing restaurant, But that's how God's called and gifted them. They love to do that. They're not looking at you in judgment because you don't. We put it on ourselves, right? We put it on ourselves. Remember, the key thing is our relationship with Jesus. The key thing is our relationship with Jesus, our relationship with God, and learning to hear his voice and how he defines us. I don't want to be a Proverbs 31 lady and have that burden on me. I don't want to have this burden of being the most hospitable person like Mrs. So-and-so and so-and-so. I need to be who God's called me to be. I love this quote from Elizabeth Elliot. This is a great quote. The God who created names and numbers the stars in the heavens also numbers the hairs of my head. He pays attention to very big things and to very small ones. I love that. What matters to me matters to him, and that changes my life. I need to read that last line again. What matters to me matters to him, and that changes my life. Man, I'm sure you're trying really hard in this crazy life to follow the way of Jesus and listen to him and learn more from him. Just remind yourself that God loves you and he looks at you in love and joy and appreciation. Unless you're doing something deliberately sinful and evil, God is not looking at you with a, oh my gosh, look on his face. He's looking at you in love and joy. He doesn't want you to be the Proverbs 31 lady, unless that's who he's called and gifted and given you a passion to be. He doesn't want you to be the greatest hospitality cook lady on the planet, unless that's who he's called and gifted and impassioned you to be, right? Okay, so here's my last point. And this is kind of a crazy one, right? And the last point, so one, don't be a Proverbs 31. You don't have to be that. Number two, you don't need to be the greatest hospitality lady, unless that's who God's called you to be. But here's the third one. Maybe do let prayer define you. Maybe do let prayer define you. Okay, so on Sunday, we're going to have the scripture read from Acts chapter 12, verses 5 to 12. So you might want to, I just don't have time to read the whole thing right now, but you might want to pause it and pause this video and read that now. But I want to read a few verses out of it, which I call it's the funniest. It is the funniest story. I think it's pretty funny. There's some bits here. So Peter's been arrested. I'm going to summarize it. And in verse 5 you have, but while Peter was in prison, the church prayed very earnestly for him. I love that. The church is really praying for him. And then there's this hilarious, but you need to read this. So maybe either stop the video and read it, Acts 12, or once you've finished the video, go and read it, because this is just hilarious. So basically he's going to be on trial. He's in prison. He's like chained to like 4 guards. And then all of a sudden, all the chains fall off and an angel leads him out and doors are just miraculously opening. So he walks out of the prison. He thinks he's having a vision and he's kind of like, what's going on? And then he gets outside and it's like the chill of the night air kind of wakes him up. And then where I went down in verse 11, Peter finally came to his senses. It's really true, he said, because he just thought this was like a dream or a vision from God or something. The Lord has sent his angel and saved me from here. It's so cool. Now, verse 12, when he realized this, he went to the home of Mary, the mother of John Mark, where many were gathered for prayer. And then there's this funny story where he knocks, and the girl that opens it's like, it's Peter! Shuts the door again and runs back and tells everyone. They're like, really? We'll let him in. It always cracks me up that he's like, hello, anyway. One of the things I love about this is, here's my question. Do you think Peter would have been released from prison if they hadn't been praying? Oh. Do you think Peter would have been released from prison if the church hadn't been praying? And I find it interesting that Luke when he wrote this chapter of Acts, he records twice that they're intensely praying, right? They're earnestly, they're fervently praying for Peter and for his delivery. Prayer works, prayer changes things just massively, right? Massively. We have an amazing prayer ministry in our church, and I'm going to say this carefully, and maybe I'll get myself in trouble, I don't know. But most of the people in there are women. Most of the people in our prayer ministry are women. There's some guys in there, but the majority by far is ladies. And we do a prayer thing on a Thursday morning. I know a lot of guys are working then, that makes sense. It's mainly ladies on Thursday morning. In our prayer chat, we have a prayer group in Facebook Messenger. Most of the people in there are ladies that are praying. I'm saying don't let Proverbs 31 define you, don't let hospitality define you, but maybe do let prayer define you. Maybe do let prayer be something that you strive for, that you want to become more incredible at. Because prayer shows our dependence on God. God just loves when we call out to him in prayer, right? One of the things I love about our church is a crazy praying church, as you know, right? And one of the things I love is, like I said, we have this prayer chat, and I love being able to put requests on there, often anonymously from someone in church or about myself, and straight away I see all these little praying hands, the little emoji you can do on Facebook Messenger, or a thumbs up or something crazy. The other day, Brett, who's a boy, so he ruins my story, good one, Brett, but Brett Wallace he's away for work at the moment, and I put a prayer request up, and straight away Brett put, I think it was a heart or a thumbs up or something, and I was like, man, that's so cool, he's away for work, but yet he's still praying. Like I've said before, there's a number of ladies that have said to me they love being part of that prayer group online, because they'll be at work or at home with kids or wherever, and they see a prayer request come up, they can put a little thumbs up or praying hands, which might be high-fiving hands, but whatever. And they feel connected to the church, and they're able to pray and like serve God no matter where they are. I just love that, I just love that. Now, I'm not trying to make it a burden, right? So don't even go, you should be praying 5 hours a day, 10 minutes a day, 2 minutes a day. That's between you and Jesus to figure out. Remember, the key is to listen to his voice. Remember when that verse I read back in Acts 4, when the Jewish leaders were like, wow, how come the apostles are so amazing and doing all this stuff? It wasn't because they owned vineyards or things. It wasn't because they were having people round for dinner. It wasn't because they were praying. It's because they were with Jesus. That's the key to all this, right? That's the key. I just wonder how many times God's done something incredible because you prayed. Because you prayed. Super cool. Here's a quote from Corrie ten Boom about prayer. I love this. I love this. Is prayer your steering wheel or your spare tire? Excuse me. Is prayer your steering wheel or your spare tire? Is prayer something essential, something that guides your life? It's a key part of your relationship with God, a key part of who you are. Or is it a spare tire? It's just something you run to when everything's hitting the fan and we've done all we can. Oh, now all we can do is pray. That's kind of what she's saying. I thought a cool way to finish this then is to just ask you this simple question. You're not having those burdens I talked about, but maybe prayer could be something you could think about. What would be a simple, again, not making giant burdens for ourselves, what would be a simple thing you could do, you could include into your life to enable you to pray just that little bit more? Maybe it's just an extra minute or a few minutes a day. Maybe you're not on our prayer group. You could say, hey, I want to be a part of that so I can pray, not so I can gossip or anything stupid like that, so I can pray. Maybe you could start a little prayer list of your own that you're praying for people and you can see God answer those prayers. Maybe there could be a time during the day that you just set aside a minute or 5 minutes, whatever, between you and Jesus. And that's just your time to pray and talk to God, and then be quiet and listen to God. Remember to learn to listen to the voice of Jesus, Cool. Hey, let me finish with this quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. This doesn't really fit with the sermon, but it's just such a cool quote. I wanted to chuck it in. So here it is here. A woman is like a tea bag. You never know how strong she is until she gets in hot water. I was like, when I read that, I was like, yeah, and that's normally the guy who's in hot water, to be honest, in my marriage anyway. Cool. Hey, let me pray for us as we finish. Yeah, kia ora, Almighty God. Man, thanks for, I don't know, I just feel the truth of this. I think as humans, we're really good at taking on burdens and expectations from others. And some of those are good, right? Some of those are good. But your word makes it so clear that the key is to take on expectations from you, desires deep in our soul from you. We want to allow you to define us and call us and impassion us, not others, God. Man, I really call out to you now, Almighty God, in the name of Jesus, for anyone that's watching or listening to this. I pray, if what I've been saying is true, that you would release them from some of those burdens and expectations that they have put on themselves, or that they've allowed others to put on them, God. If they need to meet with someone to talk through this, can you guide them to someone amazing to talk to, God? We want to learn to listen to your voice, to be defined and called by you, and not by society. Yeah, I pray all this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Alrighty, have an amazing week, and may the Lord bless you and keep you. Ka kite anō.